Overnight then through Monday evening and overnight, heavy spells of rain across Northern Ireland, Western Scotland, pushing its way swiftly eastwards. There is going to be some strong winds on this too, perhaps even coastal gales, gusts possibly 55 to 60 miles per hour. So unseasonably windy for the time of year, otherwise generally quite mild to start Tuesday. But it's an unsettled start across the central swathe of the UK with heavy spells of rain and blustery winds. That will quickly move its way south and eastwards, perhaps lingering for the longest across southeastern parts of England. Behind that, it's a case of blustery, sunny spells, scattered showers, some of the showers heavy, possibly thundery, perhaps even falling as snow over the highest mountains in Scotland. Otherwise rather cool, but high as 21 degrees in the south.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Road users should note the A720 westbound at Lasswade faces restrictions due to a broken down vehicle, causing a 14-minute delay. People are advised to exercise caution. Turning to the M4 in both directions at junction 41, Pentila-Baglan, planned maintenance is underway with both slip roads closed. Diversions are in place, so plan an alternative route. Additionally, Northumberland's A1 southbound near the junction with the A197 is experiencing disruption due to a road traffic collision, with all lanes closed. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast and London North Western Railway report disruptions between Rugby and Stafford. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Christie's tonight, we talk about the migrant crisis quite a lot, so I thought I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. For a long time, I believe that we're not being told the full truth about what is really going on when it comes to the invasion of Britain's borders. So today, I decided to come to Calais. We jumped out the car because we spotted this straight away. A boat there, ready to go. Now, they leave a little marker here. I don't think that this red cap on this plinth is an accident, do you? You have people you know in England?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know where in England? London? Manchester?
Yeah, but in London, in Manchester, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe some friend, yeah, friend. Just friend, yeah.
Yeah.
Just friend.
And they have a good life?
Better from here.
Better than France.
Yeah.
Better than France. Okay. Lastly,
He has just a Dublin problem. He is okay, but here is Dublin.
the Dublin Agreement.
Yeah, Dublin.
So they can send you back to the first country that you came in.
county.
Well, the French police just asked us to move away a little bit, so we've respected their wishes. And what you're looking at now is a migrant boat being winched out of the water. Some quite intrigued locals as well. They must see this all the time, though. So that is one boat stopped from crossing the English Channel. Now, bear in mind that just one of those boats can have up to 70 people on it. Yesterday was a record day in the English Channel, and our source tells us that they had as many as 70 people on a boat that size. So stopping just one of them is quite a significant deal, but doesn't it also just show you how brazen these people are?
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning. Monday the 2nd of June, live across the UK, Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
Good morning, it's nice to be back. So, fighting fit, the government commits to 12 nuclear-powered attack submarines as the Prime Minister sets out his plan to keep Britain safe this morning.
But troop numbers stall. The Defence Secretary reveals the number of British Army soldiers will not increase until after the next general election. Will Labour even be in power then?
We saw burn marks and we had seen smoke from far away. And it's really scary and it's really upsetting that it's happening in Boulder.
Breaking overnight, 6 people have been injured after a man set people on fire at a Colorado rally for Israeli hostages. The FBI are calling it a targeted terror attack.
Border disorder. The Prime Minister has told there should be no fishing deal with the EU until France do more to stop the small boats crossing the Channel as new records are broken.
A disposable vape ban. Shops from today will be no longer allowed to sell single-use devices as the government plans to stop youth vaping and cut plastic waste. But will it make any difference?
Welcome to the year 2000. Everyone is having fun, except me.
The BBC's been accused of ignoring biology with its new drama What It Feels Like for a Girl, which is based on a transgender teenager.
And exercise prevents cancer from coming back. New research has showed that staying active slashes cancer comeback risk, as experts say it's more effective even than drugs.
They just told me in my ear I've got to say welcome back, Beverly. How I've missed you.
No, Andrew. I think you'll find they said, it's great to have you back,
Yes.
Bev. How I've missed you, was the exact phrase.
It genuinely is great to have you back,
Okay.
and it's good to be back. The old team, the A team, whatever you want to call it.
Old team. Speak for yourself, Mr. P.
A team, and a lot to talk about.
We have got a lot to talk about this morning. Keir Starmer is going to be announcing to you how he's going to keep you safe.
But we're going to be going through it because it's not, as ever, in my view, what it says on the tin.
Yeah, exactly. GBNews.com/your say to get in touch. We'd love to hear from you this morning. First, though, here's your very latest news headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you. The top story just after 9:30. Britain will build up to 12 nuclear submarines and invest £15 billion in its warhead programme, part of a sweeping plan the government claims will make the UK secure, both at home and abroad. The Defence Review includes 30,000 skilled jobs, long-range weapons built here in Britain and a new cyber command. But the first submarines won't arrive until the late 2030s. There's still no Treasury guarantee either to hit the 3% defence spending target by 2034. That's despite earlier government promises. Defence Secretary John Healey says the UK must face down Russian aggression. But the Tories say Labour already backtracked. The Lib Dems, meanwhile, are warning of a worrying lack of urgency. Critics say without firm funding, even the most ambitious plans risk sinking before they even launch. Ukraine and Russia are back at the table in Istanbul today for a second round of direct peace talks, but expectations are low. President Volodymyr Zelensky claims Moscow is doing everything it can to ensure the next possible meeting is fruitless and says Russia failed to submit proposals ahead of time. It follows Operation Spider's Web, a Ukrainian drone assault hitting Russian air bases with more than 100 drones, said to have struck over a third of Moscow's strategic bombers. The bold move came just hours after Russia launched its largest aerial attack on Ukraine since the war began. Last month's talk in Istanbul led only to a prisoner swap, and both sides now return with little trust and rising tensions. Nigel Farage is heading to Scotland today as Reform UK steps up its campaign in the Hamilton by-election. John Swinney says the Reform leader doesn't care about Scotland as the party faces criticism over attack ads targeting Scottish Labour's Anas Sarwar. Mr Farage will hold a press conference in Aberdeen this morning before joining his candidate on the trail in Hamilton. A new poll suggests a Reform UK government, could push support for Scottish independence to 58%. And with Reform now polling ahead of Labour nationally, the party claims Sir Keir Starmer is panicking. In the United States, 8 people have been injured in a suspected terror attack at a pro-Israeli rally in Boulder, Colorado. Police say a man shouting "Free Palestine" threw Molotov cocktails at the crowd using a makeshift flamethrower during a weekly event supporting Israeli hostages. The FBI has now named the suspect an Egyptian national who overstayed a US visa. Footage shows panic as smoke filled the air, people fleeing and others trying to help the injured. Vodafone has completed its £15 billion merger with 3UK, creating now the largest mobile network in the country. The newly formed Vodafone 3, creative name, says it will invest £11 billion over the next decade to boost 5G coverage. Vodafone CEO says the deal will transform the UK's digital infrastructure and put the country at the forefront of European connectivity. And supermarkets could soon be forced to tell shoppers when they're paying more for less under a new Lib Dem proposal to tackle so-called shrinkflation. The party wants retailers to legally display notices for 60 days when a product's size is reduced, but its unit price increases. MPs may vote on the amendment to the Product Regulation and Meat Bill this Wednesday. Lib Dem trade spokesperson Clive Jones says shoppers are being ripped off during a cost of living crisis and deserve transparency. Those are the latest headlines. I'll be back with you in around half an hour's time. Now, though, it's over to Andrew and Bev.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
This is Britain's Newsroom, live across the UK on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Beverly Turner. Welcome back after you were in the Isle of Wight, I think.
I was in the Isle of Wight, the perfect place for a British family holiday. I was in a house of 12 of us with 3 pensioners, 5 kids. It was really relaxing, honestly, I promise you.
Didn't sound it.
It was brilliant. We did everything. We did the Black Gang Chime, we did Robin Hill, we did Ventnor, we rented 2 little beach huts on the beach and had flasks of tea and sandwiches. It was brilliant, absolutely lovely. But it's nice to be back.
Apart from the weather.
The weather was blimmin' terrible.
That's Britain.
It got very sunny on the ferry on the way home.
They
which is
claim
what
in the Isle
happens.
of Wight to have the best microclimate in the whole of the UK.
Well,
So
it wasn't last week.
Bad luck.
But it was lovely, honestly. It was fantastic. The kids had a great time and everybody got very sandy. And we went in the sea and we swam every day. And it was ace.
Now, 1,200 migrants crossed the Channel on Saturday. Another record. Honestly, when is this going to stop? GB News' very own Camilla Tominey spoke to the Secretary of State for Defence, John Healey, yesterday. Have a listen.
In truth, Britain lost control of its borders 5 or 6 years ago. And so when the Tories left office and left government last year, they left the asylum system in chaos. They left record levels of immigration, and the sight we've seen of these small boats over this last 24 hours just underlines and highlights the problem.
Which is some truth in that.
Yeah.
The Conservatives completely failed on this issue.
They did.
But we are now really tired of hearing this being used as an excuse.
And the first thing they did on day one was cancel the Rwanda plan, which may have worked, may have been a deterrent, but they weren't willing to give it a go.
Yeah.
But we're paying, as you know, £500 million, 500,000 to French police. Have a look at this.
So this was new footage which emerged over the weekend. This is French police basically doing very little to stop the migrant boats. And the papers were calling it a taxi service. We're basically offering a taxi service now. Keir Starmer has completely lost control of our borders in terms of illegal migration.
There's even a little one there being carried by his dad, getting into the dinghy.
In a way, why wouldn't these people...
Here's the police.
There they are, taking pictures.
Taking pictures.
Why wouldn't those people want to live here? I genuinely feel no ill feeling towards those individuals. I don't. I would want to come and live in this country. This country has a temperate climate. It has an opportunity to make money. It has the most generous social social funding in the world. We are a good country.
We're a soft touch.
We're a soft touch. The system is the problem. The absolute paucity of our borders. The system is broken and there is no disincentive for coming here. There's no deterrent.
No. And look, horrific that 1,200 at the weekend. Yeah. Some of them could have died. Last week somebody drowned at sea. We don't even bat an eyelid now when we hear of migrant drowns at sea. We think, oh well. Yeah. Because we've got beyond that point.
I mean, look, this is not going to stop whilst Keir Starmer and his administration are weak. This is a weakness.
He has a chance here. This EU reset deal, which we call the EU surrender deal, part of that is going to allow French fishermen back into our waters. No, not until we have a proper deal where we can stop these migrants flooding into our country every day. That should be the deal. And I tell you, he'd get the deal.
And here's the thing, right? On a day like today, when we're talking about defending our country, we're literally being asked to imagine a war footing.
And we can't even stop some dinghies.
We're being asked, imagine you will have to go, we are going to spend a lot of money so that we can fight for this country. Why would we? Genuinely, why would people, when this is what we see about our country, are those people there going to fight for this nation?
Not.
I'm so sorry, but they're not.
They're laughing all the way to the Social Security Office. Now, the Home Office has given us a statement which says they want to end dangerous small boat crossings which threaten lives and undermine border security and will stop at nothing to dismantle their business models and bring them to justice. Have you heard that before?
Stop at nothing. Well, can you just start doing something, would be my suggestion. The Prime Minister is going to unveil his plan to strengthen Britain's defence this morning.
It will include 12 new attack submarines, 6 munition factories, they won't say when they're going to be open, by the way, more missiles and drones, plus a new cyber command. How will it all be paid for?
Let's talk to former British Army officer Hamish de Bretton-Gordon right now. Good morning, Hamish. Thank you so much for joining us. Can you see the irony on a day when the Prime Minister is talking about ploughing billions of pounds into the defence of our country, when many people watch this saying, well, why? We can't even defend our borders, and we're not sure what we'd be fighting for anyway.
Well, I'm not sure I can see the irony. I actually think that we've spent our peace dividends so much now that we have a defence force that is barely capable of defending the country, as you say, and we now have the Russian hordes yet again heading west, and it's essential. I think Keir Starmer was trying to find his inner Sun Tzu, the Chinese philosopher, who said the art of war is to win without fighting. And unfortunately, when Putin looked west on the 24th of February 2022, he didn't see a conventional deterrence in Britain or a nuclear deterrence, a balanced nuclear deterrence in Britain that concerned him, and he cracked on. And now we need, I do agree Starmer's view that defence of this country is his number one priority, and we now need to invest in it. What they're saying seems sensible, but the timescale involved and the money involved is not going to deliver that credible defence we need anytime soon, I think.
The Defence Secretary said last week, Hamish, he was in no doubt the government will be spending 3% of our gross domestic product by 2034. Yesterday he said it's an ambition, but if you read the Defence Review, it says quite clearly and explicitly these recommendations for all these extra military hardware are based on what they see as the government's, quote, vitally important decision to raise spending to 3% of GDP by 2034. The whole thing is predicated on something that's not going to happen, necessarily.
Well, you're absolutely right. There's smoke and mirrors here. The 2.5% in the next 2 years is barely enough to keep treading water. Most European countries, certainly the Baltic states and others who realise the threats that we face these days, are talking about 3.5% plus, and that is now rather than sort of 10 or 15 years' time. So, what has been said in the Defence Review, is what is about to be said, is all good stuff. But unless there's funding to do it, it's fairly meaningless. And I think we need to be radical as well. We've got the smallest army we've had since the Battle of Waterloo, and the threats today are far, far greater on a strategic scale than they ever were back in the 17th century. So I think what one has got to get real, that actually if we can't defend ourselves, all the other great stuff that's talked about is fairly meaningless. And I expect focusing on the nuclear side is probably the way to do it. Although no doubt there'll be people screaming that we should get rid of our nuclear weapons. They've kept the peace for 80 years. And I'm sure they are the main deterrent that people like Putin really understand. But at the moment, it is unbalanced. And if the new idea is that we develop tactical nuclear weapons, which we used to have up until 1997, then I think that will be a really smart move and will hold Putin back. But unless there is real money behind all the rhetoric we said today, it is fairly meaningless. And of course, Putin is sitting in Moscow and other tyrants around the world who are watching this and see that these things are pretty hollow unless there is money to back them up.
I think the thing is, Hamish, I sit on this show and watch people involved in the military or formerly involved, like you are. And we are told we need to be frightened of being invaded by dictators around the world. But when people wake up in the middle of the night at 3 o'clock in the morning in this country, they're not laying there thinking that we're going to be bombed by Putin. And this is why government, why what Keir Starmer will say today, and subsequent governments, it's not just this one. This is why people don't feel it when you say we need to spend money on this, when people say, well, I can't pay my fuel bill, and I can't pay my shopping bill, and I can't get a GP appointment. Is the threat genuinely such that we should all be prioritising where our taxpayers' money should go?
Well, I'm sure your relatives thought pretty similar in 1939 and in 1914, and we know what happened then. And yeah, absolutely, you cannot watch the news today without realising what is happening in Ukraine at the moment, what Russia is doing. After the amazing Ukraine attacks into Russia yesterday, the Russian nuclear capability was put on high alert. A scan of missiles were sent into their positions. And even today, Russia is threatening this country with nuclear attack again. So quite apart from, although I think that is not credible, but the main thing here is if Ukraine does not prevail, if Russia does manage to take Ukraine, nobody who studied this in any details thinks that Putin will stop there. And as soon as Putin goes further west, he's in NATO countries and will be involved. What we must do is to prevent Putin going any further west than he is at the moment. So I quite agree with you. Most people are more worried about, buying their food for their kids and keeping the heat on. But actually, I'm sure they're also looking at the news channels like this one to realise that there are some real serious threats out there, and we must stop them getting any further west. Otherwise, we'll be all involved.
OK, thank you so much, former British Army officer Hamish de Bretton-Gordon. There. It's about trust, this, Andrew Pearce.
It is.
And I don't trust the government when they say that, we should all be frightened because we're all going to be... Putin's going to send a nuclear bomb in this way. I don't trust them. That doesn't feel like an imminent threat. I mean, look, this might come back and bite me. But it doesn't.
I always think, but while we've got our own nuclear threat, he wouldn't anyway.
That's right. So I don't trust all the rhetoric around this. We are going to be hearing what Keir Starmer's got to tell you.
We will be
in
hanging on his
minutes.
every word, of course, as we always do on this station. Still to come, we'll have the latest from Colorado, horrible, where 6 people have been injured in a terror attack at a rally to mark the fact there are still Israeli hostages, courtesy of the ghastly Hamas.
That's right. But up next, should Britain's fishing deal with the EU be stopped until the French police do more to stop small boat crossings? It might seem logical, but do we have a government that would ever make that sort of demand on the French?
It's so obvious. First, if you're looking for that elusive holiday sun, there was none in the Isle of Wight on February's holiday last week. Here's a forecast of some of our top European destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
And looking further afield, there's plenty of warm sunshine, not as hot as recent days, with the risk of thunderstorms, but it is going to be breezy across the Canary Islands and parts of Madeira. Plenty of sunshine across Portugal and southern parts of Spain, but there are going to be frequent showers and thunderstorms across the Alps. Plenty of sunshine across parts of Italy and Greece, and we hold on to plenty of warm sunshine as we go through the week. Few showers around, but highs up to the high 20s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Health programme that turns back the clock. Promethean Longevity is a wellness company with a difference. Using a combination of science and fitness, it aims to reduce people's biological age.
We take their initial tests and work out their biological age, and we take a history of their exercise, what they're eating, and then we make a bespoke programme that's kind of personalised to each participant, and that will guide them through 6 weeks of diet. Everything that they eat will be planned, their exercise is planned, we can help with supplements, anti-aging protocols for things like sleep, skincare, kind of all aspects of ageing, really.
It comes as life expectancy in Yorkshire is one of the lowest in the country, according to the ONS.
Well, a man born in Yorkshire can expect to live almost a decade, well, in certain parts of Yorkshire, let's be more specific, can expect to live a decade less than someone born in certain parts of the south. That's pretty significant. People in Yorkshire can expect to be in poor health for the last 20 years of their life. And England as a whole, I mean, for one of the richest nations in the world, we lag behind Europe in terms of life expectancy and health expectancy, which is really the crucial thing to us, really. It's not about how many years you live. It's about living those years with some kind of quality of life.
62-year-old Debbie Shaw reduced her biological age by 17 years on Promethean Longevity's 6-week programme.
I lost 1.5 stone on their diet, and that's something that I just kind of accepted was older age. I'm a menopausal woman and we put weight on. I started off at 56 and I ended up at 39. And I feel 39 again.
GB News, the People's Channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Nigel is back.
Good evening.
Unfiltered.
Are these proposals bold enough?
Uncompromising.
Will it bring growth?
Unmissable.
We as a country are brilliant.
Nigel Farage returns tomorrow from 7 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In truth, Britain lost control of its borders 5 or 6 years ago.
Britain has lost control of its borders. That's the warning for the Defence Secretary John Healey after a record 1,194 migrants crossed the Channel in a single day over the weekend.
Have we lost control or surrendered the border? Alf Mehmet, the chairman of Migration Watch UK, joins us alongside the political commentator James Matthewson. Well, Alf, I mean, I think we know the answer from you. We lost the control of our borders a long time ago, didn't we? Good morning.
Yeah, did we ever have control? Certainly not since 2018, when these small boats started coming. Since then, we've had 165,000 cross the Channel that we know about. That's the size of Sunderland or Milton Keynes or Huddersfield. Absolutely absurd. No, we have no control because there is no deterrence in place. And until we are serious about putting a deterrence in place, I'm afraid that they will continue to come.
James, that number is eye-watering, but compared to legal migration, it is still a small number. The difference being, of course, that people who arrive here legally intend generally to put back into the system to somehow work for their money. People have woken up now to the idea that these illegal immigrants are costing the UK taxpayer a fortune with no deterrence. What do we do?
Well, I don't know where you get the idea that the people who arrive here by small boat aren't wanting the same thing. I mean, that's literally what they're wanting to do. They can't work, obviously, because of the system that's in place. So many of them who arrive here, obviously, it takes over 6 months. I think 68% of them, it takes 6 months or more for their claim to be processed. That's the problem here. And the issue that we tend to have is where do we put those people in the meantime? And that's the big debate that goes on. Are they in temporary accommodation? Are they in permanent accommodation? Some people want to send them away from the country. Some people want them to be processed here. I just think it's a complete dereliction of duty of a nation state to not be able to process people who arrive on their doorstep. Only 52% of these people have their claim accepted in the end anyway. So it's not like 100% of these people go on to live in the UK. Only 52% of them do so. And I just think welcoming those people here, they're going to arrive here regardless. And whatever loopholes there are, unless you want a nation that is patrolled with barbed wire fences 24/7, it's just not a realistic idea to think that we're going to have a nation that has no small
James,
boats
but isn't Alf Mehmet right? We do need a deterrent, and there is absolutely no deterrent. It's just come on in, and even the French police who we're paying £500 million to are laughing at us. They're laughing at our no border controls, and they're even taking photographs.
I don't believe anybody is laughing at us. I think there's this strange kind of attitude that's going on here that we've developed, and it's very sad actually. And I hear people calling out for a crisis to be declared, and that there is a crisis, and the language that's used is that there's a crisis. Where was the crisis for child poverty? Where was the crisis for people who had their benefits stripped from them from austerity? Because it seems like people care about those issues now, that migration's factored into it, but they never cared about it in the first place. These are real issues that matter, and blaming asylum seekers for them just doesn't stack up in my mind.
Alp, your response to that? Because you are a compassionate
there's so much to
person.
respond to. There's so much to respond to. First of all, we're assuming that all those who are crossing the channel are the sort of refugees, the sort of asylum seekers that the conventions had in mind. They're not. The vast majority are young, working-age men who can afford and have the strength to make their way over for a better life. Yeah, I don't blame them for that, but they're not refugees. Secondly, those who are, it's not a matter of how many are granted asylum and how many aren't. How many are they actually removing? There's virtually none being removed from among those who've crossed the channel in boats. We've committed the NAO, the NAO. The
National
Audit Office.
National Audit Office.
National Audit Office only 2 weeks ago said that the Home Office had committed £15 billion to be spent over the next decade. I would argue that if we were serious and dealt with those coming across illegally from the other side of the channel, we'd have a lot more to spend on the sort of children that you've referred to, my friend, the poor kids and poverty. This is not what the British people want. It's something that they are desperately angry about, and the government said it was going to do something about it, and all it's done is actually made it easier for them to come and stay. And
gentlemen, I'm sorry, because
them.
of pressure of time, we'll have to leave it there. That's Alf Mehmet, Chairman of Migration Watch, and the political commentator James Mathieson. In the studio is Mark White. Now, you've got some breaking news on the migrants.
You mentioned there the absolutely unacceptable sight of police standing watching the boats going into the water. Well, the Home Secretary and others here were obviously deeply frustrated at that as well, especially as the French Parliament passed new laws to allow them to intervene in shallow water to push the boats back. I've been told that the Home Secretary has been on the phone to her opposite number in France and has said that that new policy needs to be operationalised now. They need to get on and start shoving these boats back to shore.
We were thinking it was going to be late summer.
Well, we were told that there would be a little bit of a lag time while they got the teams trained up for what could be a tricky manoeuvre of trying to push the boats back onto the beach. But clearly, the British government wants to see action now.
Well, it's embarrassing, isn't it?
Deeply embarrassing.
Mark, the Prime Minister makes his speech with this backdrop about huge increase in defence spending. We can't protect our shores, but that, I'm sure, is what they're pouring in our inbox. There's an irony, isn't there?
Well, there's no doubt, and when you get the questions in the press conference, well, the establishment media, maybe that would be asked of them. But if Catherine gets a question, then maybe she will ask that question. There is no doubt that many people see the lack of security at our borders as a key issue that needs to be addressed just as urgently as the defence of the realm.
I was reading all this stuff in the Sunday papers, this morning about we can have jets with nuclear weapons attached, 12 nuclear-powered submarines, but no increase in the army by the 2000. So where's the money coming from? And it's not there. The report is predicated on spending X amount. The Prime Minister, in an interview this morning, in his speech today, is going to say he can't guarantee that spending.
Yes, there is only so many ways you can slice the cake.
Yes.
And that's the thing about this, is we have only had from the Prime Minister talk of an ambition to get to 3% in the next Parliament. Well, this government might not even be in office in the next Parliament.
It won't be.
So the armed forces have been promised jam tomorrow by successive governments, and all they've really seen is a continued hollowing out of our defence capabilities. So let's see in the fullness of time whether that commitment to 12 new attack submarines actually is borne out in terms of a firm commitment to go to 3% of GDP. Even that might not be enough for everything they want to do. I will say, though, on the arming of aircraft with strategic nuclear weapons is probably a sensible move. We are the only major nuclear power that basically bets all our nuclear deterrent on one delivery platform, and that's our continuous at-sea deterrent, the nuclear submarines. We used to have aircraft in the 50s, 60s, 70s, the V-bombers, the Valiant, the Victor and the Vulcan bombers that used to deliver our nuclear deterrent. We don't have that. France does, America does, Russia of course does, India and Pakistan, they all have that ability. We don't have that ability, so it is a weakness in our nuclear deterrent capabilities. So it seems that they wanted to address that, but it gets back to the initial point you raised there. How on earth do we afford it on 2.5% of GDP, which is all we're committed to at the moment?
So this defence plan that he's about to announce in the next few moments is based on a review, is it, Mark, that he commissioned when he got into number 10 so 6 months ago? Yes,
and it has been commissioned and carried out by a number of key figures, including Lord Robertson, George Robertson, former Defence Secretary and former Director General of NATO at one point. 62 recommendations. The government are going to accept them all. Keir Starmer keeps telling us that, you know, in terms of the threat we face from adversaries around the world, we are in a changed environment now. We are in a much more dangerous world, and that's why we need to prepare our armed forces for the potential of conflict with a peer adversary.
Does he has he had a choice as to when to announce this review? So they've been in government for nearly a year now.
Yeah.
So could he have announced this at any point, or has it just this has come on his desk now, the defence review, and now he's going to tell us what he's going to do? Because here's my cynicism coming through here, Mark White.
I don't believe that you're cynical at all.
Populations that feel frightened are more likely to look up to their sitting Prime Minister and have faith that they don't want them to change, right? So Prime Minister's also, he did very well. The only time he's pretty much done well in the polls since he got into number 10 was he had a bounce around, what was it?
Trump.
Trump.
Meeting Trump
of course
in the Oval Office.
But no, it wasn't that one. It was that, but it was also, I think it was a Ukraine announcement. There was something where we felt that we might be at threat. I'm sorry, I will remember by the time he comes on. But there was some moment where he came out and said, I will keep you safe in the eye of this threat. It might have been a Putin thing. And suddenly he had a bounce in the polls. Because when populations feel that they are potentially a threat from a foreign power, we get nervous and we look to our Prime Minister. Will he be saying this today, expecting that the British public are stupid and are therefore going to go, oh, yeah, we're in mortal danger, we need to trust this man, he's going to spend a fortune on our soldiers?
Well, I mean, you make some interesting points there. On the defence review, we were expecting it to come out earlier, actually. It has been delayed by some considerable time. On the issue of whether, you know, prime ministers in general will tack towards big international foreign policy to try to shore up their support amongst the wider public.
Yeah.
That isn't really borne out by the actual facts on the ground. I think the public tend to be far more, the domestic public tend to be far more exercised about domestic issues, such as spending on the NHS, pensioners, you know, winter fuel and things like that. These are the things that do drive feelings of resentment towards the government if there isn't enough investment in these domestic issues. So you have to be a brave politician, I think, to go out there against what is often the prevailing wind and say, look, no, we can't actually afford to spend this on these key domestic areas at the moment because we need to keep the country safe. So I kind of think
you're right.
the opposite.
I was just looking what it was when he had that bump. We were both right in that it was when Donald Trump said, I'm just stepping away from Ukraine, Russia. To some extent, he withdrew his support. Starmer put himself on the global stage and said, oh, you're all safe in my hands. And that's what landed.
And he was actually setting up, what was it called? What was the force he called it?
Yeah, well, yes, not a peacekeeping force, but a reassurance force.
Coalition of the willing, that's it.
And he was going to put British troops on the ground, which I don't think was popular, actually.
No.
But the press conference today will be dominated by one question. How are you going to pay for this?
Yes.
Because you're telling us you're going to provide a fleet of submarines, you're going to place, all well and good. But if you're not, as the report says, you've got to increase spending by to 3%, it's pie in the sky, Mark.
Yes, you need to go beyond just an ambition. And it might be, as we get towards the next election, that actually we then get a firm commitment. And then it's the challenge, the gauntlet is handed to the Conservatives or Reform. Are you going to match this? Are you going to go to 3% of GDP at the next election? That might be something he has up his sleeve. I think what he will do today, which is actually quite an important story to be told about defence spending, because, yes, you know, there are many people that might be...
We've got Keir Starmer now, who is speaking in... He's in Scotland, of course.
And thank you for showing me this morning. Anna is an apprentice here and a real inspiration for all young people, but particularly women who want to come in and be apprentices. So thank you very much, Anna, and good morning to all of you. Thank you very much for being here this morning. Thank you for sharing with me the work that you're doing here, some of which we can see right behind us, because this is a legendary Govan shipyard, and it's really good to be able to be here in this massive space and to be back on the Clyde. And as you may have seen, a couple of months ago, just after dawn on a drizzly morning, if you can believe it, I took a boat out onto the Firth to meet one of our Vanguard's class submarines as it came back off patrol. And it was a record-breaking patrol. And we boarded the sub. It had just surfaced. It had been at sea, maintaining our continuous at-sea deterrent for months on end, a really long shift, and met what was quite a remarkable crew. And I'll remember that day for the rest of my life, because it was very clear to me that there is no greater duty than the one that they carry. No task more vital. Our security, NATO's security, depends on them. And I had the privilege of being shown around and talked to many teams on the sub. Saw them rushing to their battle stations to conduct a firing drill. And wherever I went on the sub, whichever team I was talking to, from the engineers, the cooks, the navigators, over and over again, there was a sort of unofficial motto that they told me, their motto, nothing works unless we all work together. And in this moment of danger and threat for our country, that is the spirit that we need. The Strategic Defence Review that I'm launching today will bring that unity of purpose to the whole of the United Kingdom, to mobilise the nation in a common cause, recognising in these dangerous times that when it comes to defence of the realm and the defence of everything that we hold dear, nothing works unless we all work together. From every man and woman serving in uniform, to the workers building the next generation of subs in Barrow, from the brilliant workers and apprentices right here in Govan, building the new Type 26 frigates, like the two that you can see being built right behind me, to our tech experts, our scientists, our engineers, who are pioneering battlefield innovations and cyber defences. Every part of society, every citizen of this country has a role to play, because we have to recognise that things have changed. In the world of today, The front line, if you like, is here. The threat we now face is more serious, more immediate, and more unpredictable than at any time since the Cold War. We face war in Europe, new nuclear risks, daily cyber attacks, growing Russian aggression in our waters, menacing our skies, their reckless actions driving up the cost of living here at home, creating economic pain and hitting working people the hardest. A new era in the threats that we face demands a new era for defence and security, not just to survive in this new world, but to lead. We will never gamble with our national security. Instead, we will act in the national interest. And that's why I place national security at the heart of our plan for change. That's why I launched this strategic defence review within days of becoming Prime Minister. And now it has delivered. And I want to thank the reviewers, especially Lord Robertson, who is with us today. Thank you so much for your work and the work of the other reviewers. What you've delivered is a blueprint to make Britain safer and stronger. A battle-ready, armour-clad nation with the strongest alliances and the most advanced capabilities equipped for the decades to come. And we have already acted, announcing the largest sustained increase in defence spending since the end of the Cold War, raising it to 2.5% of GDP by 2027, setting the ambition to hit 3% in the next Parliament, subject to economic and fiscal conditions. And today, following through on this review, I want to set out 3 fundamental changes that we're going to deliver. First, we are moving to warfighting readiness as the central purpose of our armed forces. When we are being directly threatened by states with advanced military forces, the most effective way to deter them is to be ready. And frankly, to show them that we're ready, to deliver peace through strength. Now, Britain has the finest servicemen and women in the world. We're showing them the respect that they deserve by delivering the biggest armed forces pay rise in 20 years and by pledging today that we will end the hollowing out of our armed forces. We'll build a fighting force that is more integrated, more ready, more lethal than ever, backed by a stronger strategic reserve, fully trained and ready to mobilise at any time. Second, everything we do will add to the strength of NATO. As we step up to take greater responsibility for our collective defence, the NATO alliance means something profound. That we will never fight alone. It is a fundamental source of our strategic strength. That's why our defence policy will always be NATO first, something that's written through this review. The transformation we are driving in our defence must add up to Britain's biggest contribution to NATO since its creation, so that when we're building new capabilities at home, we are making our allies safer too, strengthening Europe and strengthening our bridge to the US as Britain's first partner in defence. Third, we will innovate and accelerate innovation at a wartime pace, so we can meet the threats of today and of tomorrow as the fastest innovator in NATO. Now, this doesn't mean replacing people or hardware. Quite the opposite. It means learning the lessons of Ukraine, which I've discussed many times with President Zelensky, to ensure that every capability we have works seamlessly together. Drones, destroyers, AI, aircraft, each different branch of our armed services fully integrated to create an army which is 10 times more lethal by 2035. And in delivering all of this, we are more ambitious than ever for the change it can bring. To deliver not just security for our country, but renewal too. After the Cold War, many nations cut defence spending, freeing up public funds, creating what was called a peace dividend, which people felt in their public services and in the quality of their lives. Faced with new circumstances today, we must deliver for working people again, to seize now a defence dividend for the British people, using this moment to drive jobs and investment throughout the country, like here in Govan, providing local opportunities, skilled work, community pride, ensuring that everyone across the United Kingdom has a role to play in this effort, yes, but also that everyone has a stake in its success. And I want to spell this out very simply. To achieve this, we're going to build, we're going to use this investment and this once-in-a-generation reform to drive renewal up and down the nation, creating new jobs, creating skills and opportunity, driving huge growth in industrial capacity. Let me give just one or two examples. I can announce today that we're going to build at least 6 new munitions factories in the United Kingdom, generating over 1,000 jobs. We will build thousands of new long-range weapons in the United Kingdom to boost European deterrence, supporting around 800 more jobs. We will defend our homeland by investing in our air and missile defence to better protect these islands. We will create a hybrid Royal Navy, blending drones with warships, submarines and aircraft to patrol the North Atlantic and beyond, supporting thousands of brilliant shipbuilding jobs, including right here in Govan. Under our AUKUS alliance with the US and Australia, we will now deliver up to 12 attack submarines protecting Britain's waters, scaling up the industrial base in Barrow and all along the supply chain to deliver a new sub every 18 months, again creating thousands of jobs. We will also invest in world-leading drone capabilities and battlefield technology, in better kit for our warriors abroad, and better housing for them and their families at home. And finally, I can confirm today that we are investing £15 billion in our sovereign warhead programme to secure our deterrent for decades to come, creating 9,000 jobs and thousands more in supply chains across the country, part of the historic renewal of our nuclear deterrent as the ultimate guarantor of our safety and our security. The moment has arrived to transform how we defend ourselves and to renew our nation, an investment in British pride and the British people, a defence dividend that will be felt in the pockets of working people and the prosperity of the country, securing growth for generations to come, part of a new contract to unite the kingdom, a new spirit of service flowing from every part of society, from the supply lines to the front lines, everyone benefiting, everyone playing their role, doing their duty to the nation and to each other, to preserve our way of life and the things that we hold dear. Because when it comes to security and renewal, nothing works unless we all work together. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. I'm now going to take some questions from the media, and then I'll have the opportunity, I hope, to speak to some of you. Chris Mason from the BBC first, please. Chris.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Chris Mason, BBC News. Prime Minister, you're sounding a bit shaky on the funding of all of this into the next decade. Can you unequivocally say today that this will definitely be delivered? Look into people's eyes and say, yes, this will be delivered.
Yes, I can, and I'll tell you for why. Because when we set the terms of reference for this review, we set it on the premise that we would be spending 2.5% of GDP on our defence. Obviously, since then, what we've done is then put the date on that 2027, 2028, the highest sustained increase in defence spending since the Cold War. A date I think that was earlier than some people thought it would be, but also set out that ambition to hit 3% in the next Parliament. So I'm 100% confident that this can be delivered, because that was baked in from the very start of the review. It's one of the first conversations we had with the reviewers, because what I wanted was to meet the new threats, the new instability, with a plan that matched our capability with the risk that we face as a nation. That was the purpose of the review. I'm very pleased and grateful to reviewers that that's what's being delivered today. Thank you very much. Beth Rigby from Sky.
Thank you, Beth Rigby, Sky News. Prime Minister Attlee was the Labour PM credited with creating the welfare state. You're the Labour PM that wants to create, or be known for creating, a warfare state, but you're not putting your money where your mouth is. NATO says members should commit 3.5% of GDP to defence spending by 2032, and you are not even committing 3% in the next Parliament, an ambition, but you are not committing it. To govern is to choose. What is your choice? Is it properly funding defence, or is it cutting, reversing winter fuel cuts, or is it lifting the two-child benefit cap? What's the choice? And if I may, on Gaza, I asked you a couple of weeks ago whether you thought you were doing enough. You said the situation was intolerable. The situation continues. Is there any concrete action you now think the UK needs to take?
Great, thank you. But let's start with Attlee, because he led a proud Labour government that was one of the founding members of NATO. And NATO, in the intervening 80 years, has been the most successful alliance in the world in terms of preserving peace. And so Attlee was at the very start of that. That's one of the proudest things in our Labour history. So I stand here in that tradition, conscious that my job is not to reflect on the 80 years that NATO has kept the peace, but to make sure that NATO also keeps the peace for decades to come. And that is my responsibility, just as it was Attlee's responsibility in the first place, to have a government that was far-sighted enough to create NATO in the first place. Our commitment to NATO is huge in terms of the contribution we already make. As you know, we commit our nuclear capability to NATO for all of our allies and other capability. And we will have at the heart of this review a NATO-first approach. Of course, there are discussions about what the contribution should be going into the NATO conference in 2 or 3 weeks' time. But that conference is much more about what sort of NATO will be capable of being as effective in the future as it's been in the last 80 years. And that's a vital conversation that we do need to have, and we're right at the heart of that. In relation to Gaza, look, the situation is in trouble in Gaza and getting worse by the day, which is why we are working with allies to be clear in saying it's intolerable, to be absolutely clear that there needs to be a ceasefire, to be absolutely clear that humanitarian aid needs to get in at speed and at volumes that it is not getting in at the moment. It's causing absolute devastation. And, of course, to continue our work to secure the release of hostages who've been held for a very, very long time. We're working closely with allies on that. We'll continue to do so. Thank you very much, Beth. Can I go to Carl at ITV? Carl.
Thank you, Prime Minister. The authors of this review say you've got to spend 3% of GDP on defence to be able to afford what's in it. Are you committed to spending what you need to deliver everything that's in this review, or is it just an ambition?
No, we are committed to spending what we need to deliver this review. That's the basis on which the terms of reference were set, and that's the terms on which the review was published. And everything that can be done will be done within the spending envelope that we have. On the question of 2.5%, when we won the general election in 2024 last year, we said we'd do 2.5% within this Parliament. As the circumstances dictated, we then brought that forward to 2027. So you can see the way I work, which is being clarity about what we want to achieve, putting in the date when we know exactly how we can achieve it, the same with the 3%, That is what we want to achieve because of the different world that we live in, but I'm not going to put arbitrary dates on that percentage. We will do that as we did with 2.5 in a worked-through way to deliver the capability that we need under this review. Thank you very much, Carl. Catherine from GB News.
Catherine Forster, GB News. There are warnings from Germany that Russia could invade a NATO ally as soon as in the next 4 years. You haven't even committed to get to 3% in the next 9 years. Lord Richard Dannett this morning said that this is simply not going to cut the mustard. One of your favourite phrases, going further and faster. Shouldn't you be going further and faster on this now? And linked to that, part of keeping British people safe is border security. You scrapped the Rwanda deterrent. You promised to smash the gangs who are clearly running rings around us. Crossings are up 42% this year compared to last. Aren't you failing to keep us safe in the English Channel?
Well, let's start with the question of Ukraine, because I think it's fair to say that the UK has been a steadfast ally of Ukraine since the very beginning of this conflict and continues to play a central part. And I'm very proud of the support that we give to Ukraine and very alert to the continued threat from Russia, whether that's continuing in Ukraine or the wider threat. And as I mentioned in my speech, don't forget that Russia is already menacing our skies and our waters and cyber attacks. So this is a real threat that we are dealing with. I believe that the best way to deter conflict is to prepare for it, which is why we commissioned this report, this review, and why we will now act on this review. Going further and faster in what we're doing, which we have already done with pushing up defence spend to 2.5% by 2027. That wasn't in the manifesto of any of the parties going into the election, by the way. That is a commitment we've made since we've been in government. We will keep to, and that is the mindset, but also a mindset change that this must produce the defence dividend in the jobs and the opportunities here in the United Kingdom as we spend more money. In relation to border security, I want to be really clear, nobody should be making that journey across the Channel, and it's our duty to make sure that we ensure that they don't. We are working very closely with our counterparts in France and elsewhere to take further action in northern France. And of course, we are giving enhanced powers to our own law enforcement through the Borders Bill, which is currently going through Parliament. The reason we stood down the Rwanda scheme was because it cost a fortune and only a handful of people went on a voluntary basis to Rwanda, and it didn't deter anybody. I'm not up for gimmicks. I'm up for the hard work of working with partners, enhancing the powers that law enforcement have in my determination to take down the gangs that are running this vile trade. Thank you so much. Adam from the iPaper. Adam.
Thanks. Prime Minister, what's your message to voters who may be worried this extra defence spending will mean less money for their priorities, the NHS, public services, and will it mean further cuts to welfare in the years ahead?
Let me take that in 3 stages. The first is to remind us all that conflict in Europe has a massive direct impact here in the United Kingdom. And therefore, if you take the conflict in Ukraine, it is obvious it's had an impact on prices, on the cost of living in this country. So there is no argument that somehow avoiding talking about conflict will help our economy here. It won't, it will make it worse. Secondly, it is really important that as we spend more on defence, as we must in this new era, there is the defence dividend back here in jobs, secure jobs here across Scotland, 25,000 jobs across Scotland, over 400,000 jobs across the whole of the United Kingdom in defence and security. These are good, well-paid jobs. And of course the supply chains that feed into those jobs. And I am reminded, as you put the sort of choices to me, the first duty of the Prime Minister is to keep our country safe. And that is a duty that I take extremely seriously. And there's a huge cost of not keeping your country safe and security, and that's a cost I'm not prepared to inflict on people of this country. Thank you so much. And then I've got Kieran from The Guardian. Kieran.
Thank you. Kieran Stacey from The Guardian. Just to follow up on Adam's question, you say you can't say yet how you will fund the 3% ambition in the next Parliament. Can you at least rule out going back to the aid budget for that extra cash?
Well, look, on the aid budget, it was a difficult decision that we had to take in order to get to 2.5%. And I'm absolutely clear that in the meantime, we have to ensure that we do other work on aid, working with other countries, other institutions to pull levers to trigger the money that we need for aid. But the best way to pay for increase in any public spending is to grow our economy, and that is the focus when it comes to defence or any other spending, wealth creation. And that's why I'm pleased that because of the decisions that we took at the budget, which were tough but were right, we have been able to stabilise the economy. We've now got growth, the last figures at 0.7%, higher than most people thought, 4 interest rate cuts in a row, wages going up faster than prices, and of course we've built the stability and the confidence to deliver 3 trade deals with India, the US and the EU, which other governments talked about, but we delivered, which will again have their own dividends. So here in Scotland, for example, when it comes to whisky, the deal that we've done with India is hugely important. And so that is the way in which we will proceed. Thank you, Kieran. Now I'm going to Scotland. I think I'm starting with Lindsay from BBC Scotland. Lindsay.
Thank you, Prime Minister. You want to spend billions more on defence, including 15 billion more on nuclear weapons. But not very far from here in Hamilton, your party is fighting a by-election. Voters there are telling us they're angry at your government over cuts to winter fuel, over welfare cuts. They're very anxious about the cost of living. Isn't it the case that your priorities don't match those of the public? And secondly, just if I may, you mentioned the defence dividend and a further 25,000 jobs for Scotland. Can you outline when those jobs will actually be delivered?
Well, let me deal with your central challenge, because I think that security and safety of everyone in Scotland is paramount. Is absolutely paramount. And I can't imagine anybody who seriously wants to be Prime Minister of this country coming to Scotland and saying that the first priority is not the safety and security of Scotland. Just consider the consequences of somebody as Prime Minister saying that. And remind ourselves that at this time of renewed threat and instability across Europe, the SNP's position is to get rid of our nuclear deterrent, the single most important part of our capability that has kept Scotland and the United Kingdom safe for many, many years. And at this moment, they renew their pledge to get rid of our nuclear deterrent. Imagine the effect that would have on the safety and security of the United Kingdom and of Scotland. And then go to reform, who want to spend tens of billions of pounds, but won't say where the money's coming from. Completely unfunded, uncosted. That is what Liz Truss did. That's what blew up the economy. That's what led to the infliction of harm on working people in Scotland, whether it's their mortgage, their prices. I'm not prepared ever to let that be inflicted on Scotland, ever again. And that's why I'm absolutely clear in my priorities, which is the safety and security of everybody in Scotland, and making sure that we never have the prospect in Scotland again of a Westminster government that blows up their finances. Thank you very much. I've got Paris from STV.
Prime Minister, if you're so confident of the case you just made, why aren't you going to Hamilton to make that case directly to those voters? Is it because you're afraid that you'll lose to parties that, as you say, don't support nuclear weapons?
Well, my firm belief is only Labour can beat the SNP in Hamilton. My firm belief is that my job as Prime Minister is to deliver for the whole of Scotland, including Hamilton and everybody involved in that by-election. And that is what we have been doing every day of this Labour government, whether it's the biggest settlement for Scotland under the budget since devolution, a huge settlement, whether it's the increase in wages in Scotland, or the delivery of more jobs in defence and security. And I'm sorry I didn't do the second half of the question, so I'll try and tie it together, because Scotland has a proud tradition and incredible skilled workforce when it comes to jobs in security and defence. I want to make sure that those jobs are maintained, thrived, and there's more jobs to come, which will happen under the work that we're doing under this review and the increase in defence spending. Scotland contributes hugely to our defence industry. We're very grateful to be working with Scotland and Scottish working people, including everybody here, in what they contribute. And I want to see more of that, because that is good for the defence and security of Scotland and the United Kingdom. It is good for working people who will have good, well-paid jobs that will then help them and their families and their communities. Thank you very much. And then I think I've got Connor next from the Scottish Sun. Connor.
Hi, Connor Match from the Scottish Sun. Thanks, Prime Minister. As mentioned, Nigel Farage is in Scotland today as well, and on the campaign trail for the Hamilton by-election, as is John Swinney. If Labour lose to both the SNP and Reform on Thursday, which is what bookmakers think will happen, that's less than a year from the Scottish Parliament elections, and doesn't it mean that that's the beginning of the end for Scottish Labour, Anas Sarwar and you? And if I can go back to defence briefly as well, can I ask whether you fear Russia could really cause an internet blackout and power outages in the UK by targeting underwater cables and bring the country to a standstill, and are you doing enough to stop that?
Look, only Labour can beat the SNP, and we need to be really clear as we go into the final stages of the campaign in relation to that, and we're very clear in our campaign on that. In relation to Russia, look, the threats from Russia take different forms, and we are prepared, and we have to be prepared for all of them. You've seen the threats to our air and to our water, to cyber, and of course the threats that we see to cabling in different parts of the world, but threats are absolutely clear, and we're working, as you would expect, with allies to ensure that we can protect all of our infrastructure and all of our capabilities. Thank you very much. And I've got Justin, I think, from the Courier, Press and Journal.
Thanks, Prime Minister. Can I ask how today's announcement will benefit workers in Rosyth and the wider Fife area? And can I also ask how this review will help tackle Russian aggression in the far north?
In terms of the jobs, obviously there is the capability that we're currently engaged on. Now that will ramp up with the increase in spending and the recommendations of the review that we will take further. I want that to be, and I'm determined that it will be, measured in good, well-paid jobs in Fife and across Scotland, actually, because never forget the supply chains that are feeding in to the major defence and security sectors, which are vitally important. In relation to, was it Russian aggression, the second part? Yeah, look, we need to be clear when we say we're entering a new era. The level of threat and the instability is of a different order than all of us have experienced for quite some time now, and that is why I asked for this review to be done, which is I need an assessment of the threats that we face as they are now and as we think they're going to be over the next 5 or 10 years, and our current capability to ensure that our capability meets the threats that we face. And that's what I'm very pleased that this review has delivered today. Our job now is to take that on and to deliver it alongside our long-standing commitment to our NATO allies. Thank you all very much indeed. Thank you all for listening to me. Thank you for giving up your time. But most importantly, thank you for the work that you are doing here, because, as I've said to many, including those on the subs, on the frigates, etc., they can't do what they do if it wasn't for what you're doing here. All the skill that you put in here, which is incredible professionalism, is vital, because they need to know that they've got the best kit, the best equipment, and they need to know, as you know, that you're standing behind them on the front line. So thank you from me for that. Thank you, because they would want me to say thank you for all those on the front line who know that you're standing with them. It means a huge amount to them, and I've seen for myself just how important it is. This is high-skilled, really important professional work, but it is also the defence and security of our people, and I just want to say thank you to all of you for the part that you play in that. I'm very proud of what you do, and I think you should be proud of what you do too. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Keir Starmer, now, as you may have heard, there was mention of that by-election for the Scottish Parliament, which is taking place in Hamilton, Larkhill and Stonehouse, to elect a new member of that Parliament. The candidates running for that include
Katie Loudon, SNP.
Davy Russell, Labour.
Richard Nelson, Conservative.
Anne McGuinness, Greens.
Aisha Mir, Liberal Democrat.
Ross Lambie, Reform.
Colette Bradley, Scottish Socialist Party.
Andy Brady, Scottish Family Party.
Janice McKay, UK Independence Party.
Mark Wilson, Independent.
And we heard Keir Starmer saying a load of thank yous there at the end of his speech. And thank you if you're still watching or listening to us after
you got
that.
through that.
Because that was your Prime Minister trying to inspire you to be frightened that we're on a war footing and then make you think that he's going to keep you safe. We've got Alex Armstrong in the studio with us, and also Matthew Torbett. And also Mark White has stayed with us. Do you feel safe after that, Matt Torbett?
I always feel safe in this studio. I'm totally safe. No, I think it's a useful ambition. I think it speaks to the world that we're living in the fact that we're on the precipice of war pretty much everywhere at the moment. You look over at the Middle East, you look at Kashmir, you look at China and Taiwan, you look at Russia, Ukraine. And I think it's useful to at least be prepared. We've lost 30,000 soldiers in the last Parliament.
He says he's put us on a war-fighting readiness. We couldn't even recapture the Falkland Islands, and nothing he said today is going to change that.
At the same time, we weren't prepared for World War II. That's why we had a 90% tax rate. We also weren't prepared in the Boer War, which is why we nearly embarrassingly lost. I think I've got... Whether he delivers, this is a totally different story. I think the rhetoric, the ambition, I think he's welcomed. I think it would be definitely welcome in places like Barrow, where they're on about building a lot of this stuff, when he's looking at nuclear warheads and whatnot. I think that's the reason why we lost in 2019 there in the by-election, was precisely because Jeremy Corbyn was anti-Trident. You're talking thousands of jobs, decimating communities. And I'm no fan of war, but it employs a lot of people, unfortunately, in this country and elsewhere.
I just don't feel the fear, Alex. Do you? I'm forgive me, but I'm slightly more frightened of this government than I am of war.
Yeah, this whole thing is a completely vacuous statement. There's no commitment to increase defence spending. We're not going to go to war with Vladimir Putin. I mean, I would put my life savings down that we don't go to war. He can't even take parts of Ukraine, let alone the rest of Europe. This is designed to distract the public away from our completely porous borders. We have record-breaking numbers because he has no deterrent. He's talking about deterring Putin. We can't even deter illegal migrants coming over from Calais. It's a complete joke, isn't it? It's designed to look tough, but not actually be tough. No one's buying this.
Let's bring Mark White in. With your analytical brain here, Mark, there were no surprises in that speech. It had all been trailed. I don't know why they do that. You think they might keep something back, but that's a matter for the way they manage the media. Will anything in that blueprint review make Vladimir Putin and the Kremlin think, oh, Britain's emerging as a real serious threat to my ambitions, if he does indeed have ambitions of further expansion?
I don't think Vladimir Putin looks at the UK as a significant threat. No. NATO, of course, he does. Yeah. And that's why you've got the Prime Minister there emphasising how in everything we do, we need to do it with NATO. It's about that alliance that is the threat that Putin would take seriously. But can you indulge me for a second? I just want to rant at one thing, which is this trend that we've got to stop of putting these poor workers behind a politician when they do these press conferences. These people are hostages. Yeah. None of them want to be there.
No, you're right.
They are bored out of their minds. But it's just this backdrop that every politician now seems to think they have to do. Stop it, please.
To be fair, though, our inbox would suggest that it was the most entertaining part of that speech because our viewers are watching the people in the background and watching their reaction.
Being so completely and utterly bored.
And even his own defence secretary was looking at his shoes.
He was so bored. And the thing is, would you be courageous enough as an employee in a firm like that to not clap at the end when everybody else says, when the boss says clap? Because my instinct would be, absolutely not. But then you're in trouble.
Well, indeed. It's got to stop. Yeah. Please stop.
Matthew, you've worked with politicians. This is a really intensely irritating new trend, isn't it?
I've not liked it ever since. I sort of get it, you know, the workers are behind.
Who started it? It's an American thing, really, wasn't it, originally?
Probably. I always remember there was a famous picture at Conservative Party conference. I don't know if Grant Shapps was party chair many moons ago, and he had a load of people in exactly the same T-shirt, and it looked like something out of 1984.
Yeah.
It was terrifying. The one where it all went wrong was Priti Patel in the West Midlands, and there was 2 rows of police people behind her. And it was that hot, one of them passed out while she was giving the speech. And ever since then, I thought, this is terrible, because people are going to be bored, they're going to be looking at the shoes, they might need the toilet, you know, they don't believe you. I imagine...
He might have expired because he was bored.
Well, maybe.
Might have fallen asleep on his feet.
I think a lot of it is probably, if you want to go and stand behind him, you can. The boss must offer it up. But you never know if you're going to get a troublemaker either doing that sort of stuff, really. You know, I'd be tempted if I was that way inclined.
Having ranted at the PM and other politicians for doing it, I know to an extent why they're trying to do it, because they want to accentuate why the increase in armed forces spending can actually benefit the wider economy. And that is absolutely true. I was in Barrow when the Prime Minister was laying the keel for the new Dreadnought submarines, and that is a town that really is a one-industry town. It's relying to a very large degree on the work at the BAE Systems submarine manufacturing plant there. And he wants to do that. The government wants that to be the case in communities right across the country where many, many thousands of extra jobs are made. So yes, there will be a big commitment, the government says, to spending on our defence, but there will be a benefit as well to communities and the jobs it creates.
Are they going to sort this defence procurement out, though? I mean, spending all these vast billions we've known since the 1980s, the Ministry of Defence is not fit for purpose in the way it spends taxpayers' money.
Well, you've got to stop the admirals and the generals as well from interfering, because these are long lead items. So you announce the building of a new ship or submarine or whatever it might be. Then you get advances in technology, and those in charge, and I mean the civil servants as well, are saying, oh, we want to change the design for this, we want to incorporate that, and then it just adds to delay on the project, more cost on the project, till the point where you get ridiculous overruns that are costing many, many millions more, sometimes billions more than the initial projected cost of that particular...
Correct me if I'm wrong, though. When he first got into office, when the Labour government first won the election, didn't they drop funding for a bunch of aircraft carriers and plane and jets?
No,
is that right?
Yes, that's half right. Basically, a Type 23 frigate that was past its best, they say beyond repair, was decommissioned. What we did get rid of, though, is our 2 landing support ships, HMS Albion and HMS Bulwark, which is part of the Royal Marine's strategic operational landing platform. They rely on those to go into a war theatre. So they've been scrapped because we're told that, you know, only one was operating at any given time, and actually they're not really needed when they were needed.
Yeah. This is the thing, isn't it? It's sort of take away, give some back, take away, give some back, and then try and spruce up some new policy to make it look like we're spending more on defence spending, when actually, you know, we're only committing to not that 3% which we promised we would do. It now, well, it's an ambition again, which is another word for saying we're not going to do it. What I did think was really interesting, though, was that mention of Reform UK again. There's no mention of the Tories in there. It's straight attack onto Nigel Farage and spending. Just goes to show, doesn't it? He's running scared of reform in Scotland.
Yeah, well, yeah, and of course he makes a whole speech last week about a party which has got 5 MPs.
Exactly.
Amazing.
Yeah.
We've got to move on, gentlemen.
Thank you, guys.
Because we're going to talk a little in a moment about exercise can be better than drugs when combating cancer.
That's according to Cancer Research UK. They say that trials where patients were prescribed exercise have seen the cancer death rates drop by a third.
Joining us now is oncologist and former director of the World Health Organization, Professor Carol Sikora. Professor Sikora, good morning. Always a pleasure to talk to you. This is, on the one hand, seems very encouraging, but do you agree with it?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a big trial, 800 patients, 400 in each arm. One got a leaflet telling them to stay healthy and a little bit of advice about exercise. The other one got a personal trainer, 6 sessions with a personal trainer, and got set on an exercise program. And we've known for some time that exercise after the diagnosis of cancer improves results. But this is a randomized trial, and it really proves it. As we've heard, a third of patients survive longer if they have the exercise. And it doesn't have to be unpleasant exercise. You don't have to do marathons to do it. You could choose what you want to do. It could be climbing, it could be running, it could just be walking the dog more regularly. It could be going upstairs instead of using the lift. It's really amazing because there's a big meeting in Chicago at the moment where all these results are being released, and most of it's about new drugs for cancer. But the effect of exercise is actually bigger than some of these very expensive drugs that cost over £10,000 a month. So amazing.
What's the mechanism of repair, Carol? Is it about taking down inflammation? Is it about improving the immune system if you've already been diagnosed with cancer?
I mean, the real answer is we don't know. But I think all those things, reducing inflammation, actually increasing endorphins, which make you feel good. If you go do a park run or something, you feel good afterwards for a bit. That's because it releases internal hormones that make you feel just good. And you don't feel hungry either. So exercise actually stops you wanting to eat lots of cream buns, for example, which would be bad for you. So exercise is a very powerful drug in a way. It really affects the body. How it actually reduces the risk of recurrent cancer, we just don't know. And a lot of people are looking into it now, but it's probably to do with hormonal change in the body.
And on the NHS, Professor Sikora, are specialists recommending to patients who've got cancer, if you try exercise, this could assist your recovery? Is it being embraced enough, do you think?
I think they will do. We don't have a programme as yet, but I think after this is the first randomised study of any real multi-centre, multi-country, large number of people with colon cancer, but I'm sure you could repeat it in breast, in lung, in prostate cancer. You know, the NHS has a fantastic programme for recovery after coronary artery disease. People have stents, they have bypass surgery, they then get a programme. All hospitals have a cardiac rehab unit that do cardiac surgery and stenting. And that's the model we could use here. Now, this study verifies that it's effective, exercise is effective. I think, and it's simple and it's cheap. I mean, it is just so cheap to do.
I mean, if it was genuinely going to be taken seriously by the NHS, every hospital should have a gym attached to it. And when you go for your appointment, you do an hour with your personal trainer on the treadmill. I mean, it should.
Otherwise you can't see the doctor, yeah.
Cut the bills, but it should be very cost effective. Do you have any faith that such common sense will prevail?
I think it will. I think the economy is really stacked for it. The trouble is no one's going to make much money out of it. You know, the drug companies love this meeting in Chicago because they sell drugs up to £20,000 a month for a much smaller benefit. So, but there's no one going to profit. Okay, personal trainers, maybe some gyms will profit. But the sort of exercise we're talking about doesn't really need that. Anyone can do exercise, whatever they like. Swimming, squash playing, tennis, it doesn't matter, just something.
Yeah, just get moving. Thank you so much, Professor Carol Sikora, there this morning. Right, let's see what you've been saying at home. Talking of people who have made money, we've got the drug companies and now we've got the military-industrial complex. People who make bombs are going to be very happy this morning, aren't they, after that announcement by Starmer. But a lot of you rather unimpressed by that speech. Let me see what you were saying. Katie said, if Starmer really cared about keeping Britain safe, he'd stop 1,378 fighting-age men from entering the country illegally day after day after day. He is a liar. Jackie said perhaps the government should not have spent and committed so much money to give away and rent back a sovereign territory. Senseless, I presume that's the Chagos Islands.
Yeah.
That they're talking about. And Peter says, I'm nearly 60 years old, and up until 10 months ago...
Oh, microphone's gone, so I'm going to have to read those. But of course I can't because... So Peter says, I'm nearly 60 years old, and up until 10 months ago I'd have still picked up a gun to defend this country, but now I wouldn't even entertain it. Why would I want to vote for Starmer when he's going to give this country away? Well, I think a lot of people probably think that. Now, we're going to have the latest on that terror attack in Colorado, which was targeted at people supporting the campaign to get those Israeli hostages freed. Stay with us all day, not just on TV, but also on radio and on your smart speaker. To listen to us on your smart speaker, just say, play GB News on Tune In. Listen to Andrew Pierce and Beverly Turner. It's Britain's Newsroom, and we are going to go to the weather, and hopefully it's getting a bit better where you are.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, it's settled for most, but low pressure is going to be arriving and it's going to be turning increasingly wet and windy. So through this morning, it's plenty of sunshine for many of us. There are a few showers around across Wales, but actually the main focus for showers today will be across East Anglia, parts of Lincolnshire and Yorkshire. Elsewhere, plenty of sunny spells, but the sunshine will be turning increasingly hazy later across Northern Ireland and Scotland, with the winds strengthening here too. Cooler here, but in the sunshine, further towards the south and east, with lighter winds, feeling pleasant, highs of 21 or 22 degrees. So through Monday evening, then plenty of late evening sunshine towards eastern parts of Scotland, but sunshine increasingly hazy out towards the west with a strong wind ahead of some heavy spells of rain. A similar picture across Northern Ireland with heavy spells of rain soon arriving. Across much of England and Wales, though, largely fine and dry. Plenty of late evening sunshine here. So as we go overnight then, through Monday evening and overnight, heavy spells of rain across Northern Ireland, Western Scotland, pushing its way swiftly eastwards. There is going to be some strong winds on this too, perhaps even coastal gales, gusts possibly 55, 60 miles per hour. So unseasonably windy for the time of year, otherwise generally quite mild to start Tuesday. But it's an unsettled start across the central swathe of the UK with heavy spells of rain and blustery winds. That will quickly move its way south and eastwards, perhaps lingering for the longest across southeastern parts of England. Behind that, it's a case of blustery, sunny spells, scattered showers, some of the showers heavy, possibly thundery, perhaps even falling as snow over the highest mountains in Scotland. Otherwise rather cool, but highs 21 degrees in the south.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could be our biggest winner yet, touring in this stylish Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. This brand new 2025 model comes complete with kitchen and bathroom areas and enough space to comfortably sleep a family of four. We'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to add a few of your favourite things. Don't miss out as lines close on the 6th of June. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock, only on GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
It's 11 a.m. on Monday, the 2nd of June, live across the UK. Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
So Sir Keir Starmer has just set out his defence plan.
A battle-ready, armour-clad nation with the strongest alliances and the most advanced capabilities, equipped for the decades to come.
But the Prime Minister has failed to set a date to reach 3% defence spending before the 2034 election.
Well, the Prime Minister said that this government would end the hollowing out of the armed forces, but without that commitment to 3% of GDP, are these just hollow words?
We saw burn marks and we had seen smoke from far away. And it's really scary and it's really upsetting that it's happening in Boulder.
And breaking overnight, 6 people have been injured after a man set people on fire at a Colorado rally for Israeli hostages. The FBI have called it a targeted terror attack.
And disposable vape ban. Shops will no longer be allowed to sell single-use devices. The government plans to stop youth vaping and to try to cut plastic waste.
And it is border disorder. The Prime Minister is told there should be no fishing deal with the EU until France do more to stop the small boats crossing the Channel. But will they?
Welcome to the year 2000. Everyone is having fun, except me.
The BBC has been accused of ignoring biology with its new drama, What It Feels Like for a Girl, which is based on a transgender teenager.
That BBC drama, it's about a trans woman called Paris Lees. And what I find so interesting about this story is that as the rest of the country is sort of coming to its senses about biological truth.
After the Supreme Court ruling, the Cass review about
and
trans.
Also in America, Donald Trump kicking men in sports bras out of women's sport. The BBC are kind of doing the opposite. And I'm sure this programme was in production for a long time.
They could have shelved it, could have delayed it.
They could have, and I suppose it is interesting, and it will. There is some interest in understanding the journey of Paris Lees, born a boy to transition into being a woman. You might have known she's a model. She's done fashion stuff, and she's been on that Channel 4 series, The Island. She was also on that, I think, as well. So there is some interest in it, but I don't know. It's just a very normalising, isn't it, of what is actually a very niche set of circumstances.
And I think most people just think, can we just get on with our lives, and we don't want to hear about all this, I'm afraid.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of it about.
I think so.
GBNews.com/you'll say. Hopefully you don't feel like that about this programme this morning. First, though, Sam Francis has got your news. Lots more.
Very good morning to you from the newsroom. Just after 11 o'clock, Sir Keir Starmer has announced the UK is preparing for war, not to fight it, but to prevent it. The Prime Minister's unveiled a sweeping defence overhaul, pledging war-fighting readiness in the face of threats from Russia. The plans include up to 12 new attack submarines, 6 munitions factories, a drone-integrated Royal Navy and £15 billion for UK's nuclear warhead programme. He says the UK will deliver the biggest contribution to NATO since it was created. But critics say without firm funding, even the most ambitious plans risk sinking before they launch. While speaking in Glasgow moments ago, Sir Keir Starmer made that pledge that the government will innovate at a wartime pace, all part of what he called a new era of military ambition.
The threat we now face is more serious, more immediate and more unpredictable than at any time since the Cold War. We face war in Europe, new nuclear risks, daily cyber attacks. A new era in the threats that we face demands a new era for defence and security. Not just to survive in this new world, but to lead. We will never gamble with our national security. Instead, we will act in the national interest.
Ukraine and Russia are back at the table in Istanbul today. All delegations are now in attendance at that venue for a second round of direct peace talks, but expectations are low. President Zelensky is claiming that Moscow is doing everything it can to ensure that the next meeting is fruitless, and says Russia failed to submit proposals ahead of time. It follows Operation Spider's Web, a Ukrainian drone assault hitting Russian air bases with 117 drones, said to have struck over a third of Moscow's strategic bombers. The bold move came just hours after Russia launched its largest aerial attack on Ukraine since the war began. Last month's talks in Istanbul led only to a prisoner swap, and as both sides are now returning, there is little trust and rising tensions around the table. Nigel Farage is in Scotland today as Reform UK steps up its campaigning in the Hamilton by-election. John Swinney says the Reform leader doesn't care about Scotland as the party faces criticism over its attack ads targeting Scottish Labour's Anas Sarwar. Mr Farage is holding a press conference in Aberdeen before his candidate, and he will head off on the trail in Hamilton. A new poll suggests a Reform UK government could push support for Scottish independence to 58%. And with Reform now polling ahead of Labour nationally, the party claims Sir Keir Starmer is panicking. In the United States, 8 people have been injured in a suspected terror attack at a pro-Israeli rally in Colorado. Police say a man shouting "Free Palestine" threw Molotov cocktails at the crowd, using a makeshift flamethrower during a weekly event supporting Israeli hostages. The FBI has now named as suspect an Egyptian national who overstayed their US visa. Footage showed panic as smoke filled the air and people were fleeing, and others tried to help the injured. Officials are treating it as a hate crime, with Israel's foreign minister calling it pure anti-Semitism. And Vodafone has completed its £15 billion merger with Three UK, creating the largest mobile network in the country. The newly formed and aptly named Vodafone 3 says it will invest £11 billion over the next decade to boost 5G coverage. Vodafone's CEO says the deal will transform the UK's digital infrastructure and put the country at the forefront of European connectivity. You're up to date just after 11 o'clock. I'll be back with you in half an hour's time. Now, though, it's over to Britain's newsroom.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom live across the UK on GB News with me, Bev Turner, and Andrew Pearce.
I suspect there have been quite a few people getting in touch, have they not?
They have indeed this morning, but it's complicated, isn't it, when Keir Starmer gets on and does a speech, because I imagine after you turn off. But those of you who did stay with us...
As long as you turn back on.
Yeah, well, I'd rather you didn't turn off at all.
Yeah, quite.
But those of you who did stay with us, yes, you have some rather strong opinions on the fact that it was not inspiring. You don't feel that the danger that he is suggesting is out there in terms of countries wishing to drop nuclear bombs on us is genuine and authentic. And also, a lot of you commenting on the fact that if that is meant to be the sort of speech that in which the government is announcing, the Prime Minister is announcing he's putting us on a war footing, you can't tell that to the country without telling us you're going to protect us. And a lot of you have no faith that that's going to be done either. So let me have a quick look what you've been saying here. How many billions are we giving to Mauritius, says Clive, and our enemies in aid? Funnily enough, one of the journalists on there, I believe it was someone from the Guardian, asked Keir Starmer.
Good question.
It was a very good question. Are you going to pay for this by taking money out of the foreign aid budget? The Davos globalist elite, says Clive, are working with China to create a no-nation, one-belt, one-road oligarchy. Von der Leyen and Starmer are just two cogs in the machine designated to enslave the world. Starmer yet again grandstanding, says Leslie and David. He should have been an actor.
He wouldn't have got much work.
Janice says, why do all the workers stand behind the Prime Minister when he has a press conference? He never asks them a question. They're forced to be there. They never look happy. Mark White has very strong opinions on that, as you might have just heard before. And in fact, as if I imagine he's still here with us in the studio. Mark, for people who are just tuning in, what did we hear from Keir Starmer in Scotland this morning in terms of this defence review?
Well, the reason he had so many people behind him, which I hate, and once again, we need to stop this, was to try to get across the message that, yes, he wants to invest in defence spending in the armed forces, but there is an upside of that for the economy as well, because the defence sector, the industries right across the country, and including where he was in Govan, will benefit with the creation of many thousands of additional jobs. But really, I think, for me, my main takeaway from all of this was that you had a government, a Prime Minister, standing up there and saying, look, the years of hollowing out the defence, the armed forces of this country are at an end, that we are reversing that course, we are investing in the armed forces. And yes, they are increasing from 2027 to 2.5% of GDP. But that will barely allow us to stand still with the equipment programmes that we already have in play. You need to go much higher than that if you want to meet the ambition that he was speaking about today with the extra attack submarines, the refurbishment and renewal of our nuclear warhead programme, and all of the above. And he's not committed to that. He has merely said it's an ambition. As a journalist on a well-known radio station this morning said, he said, I've got an ambition to lose weight.
Yes.
It doesn't actually mean anything.
Yeah.
That's right.
You know, you need to commit to it. And he has not committed to it yet.
And because the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, elephant in the room here, she's obviously said you can't. She's not letting him.
Yes, well, I mean, he's the Prime Minister. At the end of the day, he can make the ultimate decision. If she is an obstacle in the way, she can be removed.
So
you know, if he is as committed as he says he is to defence spending, then there needs to be a commitment at some time, because the armed forces of this country have constantly been promised jam tomorrow in terms of take this painful cut now, we're building X number of frigates further down the road, only for those frigate numbers to be cut. They see that all the time with defence spending.
Planes fitted with missiles, fabulous. He said he was 100% confident he could achieve all that, but said in the next breath, it's an ambition.
Well, if you're 100% confident, then surely you can just say we are committing to it. Now, it might be that as we approach the next election, it becomes the kind of issue that, as a government, opposition parties, they want to campaign on a determination to get 3% of GDP. Remember, you've got NATO's Director General, Secretary General, saying that we should go to 3.5% of
Trump
GDP.
wants us at 5.
Well, indeed. So we've quite a bit to go to meet that particular commitment or what NATO wants to see. And all the time, of course, he's accentuating why we need to be part of NATO, that we're no... Well, the honest answer is we're no threat to Vladimir Putin ourselves as an independent nation. But, of course, as part of an alliance like NATO, then we are. But that requires everyone investing in NATO.
Thank you, Mark. Loads of people getting in touch at home. Jackie's saying, so let me get this straight. We will start increasing defence in 2 years, but Russia will be here in 4 years. Did I get that right? Can we restock in 2 years? The timing of it all just doesn't make any sense either, does it?
No, and that's a very good point. I mean, there are many people, especially within the military, both retired and current, pointing to threats from Russia being as imminent as just 3 or 4 years. But as Catherine Foster put, and what I thought was a very good question to Sir Keir Starmer, you can't even commit to 9 years ahead. You're just talking about an ambition for 9 years' time.
Yeah.
So,
well, British public aren't stupid, and GBNews viewers are certainly, and listeners are certainly not stupid. You feel like you've just had a bit of sand kicked in your eyes this morning, don't you? Now, 6 people have been injured after a man set fire to other people at a rally for Israeli hostages in Colorado.
Officials say a 45-year-old suspect shouted "Free Palestine" when he threw Molotov cocktails on demonstrators. That person is now in custody.
So joining us now is a former counter-terror specialist, Paul Birch. Good morning, Paul. What do we know about this awful, hideous attack? What happened?
Well, this took place at a gathering, I believe a weekly gathering they have in Boulder to remind people, raise awareness of the fact there are still many hostages being held by Hamas in Gaza. And what looks like has happened here, this person has turned up with a variety of petrol bombs. I saw online, it mentioned somewhere online a homemade flamethrower. I haven't seen any evidence of that, but he just starts shouting abuse at the people gathered there. Pro-Palestinian slogans, anti-Semitic slogans, talking about how many babies have you killed, clearly a reference to Gaza. And he starts throwing these at people. A number of people have been injured, and I believe to make it even worse and even more tragic, that one of the people injured badly was a 88-year-old Holocaust survivor.
So this is why it's being treated, therefore, as a terror attack, because of what this man was shouting and the group that he was attacking.
Yes. They've, I believe the American authorities have initially said it's a hate crime, but clearly is a hate crime because, as you can see on the screen there, he's shouting things at the people. He's got the weapons in his hand. I believe at that point, when they're filming him here, he's already thrown a couple, because in different footage you can see people being treated on the ground. So if you want to look at the tick boxes for declaring something a terrorist incident, there was a political motive there. He was attacking people because he thought they were Jewish, or they were commemorating or trying to raise awareness of plight of some Jewish people, and he was shouting slogans at the same time. And it doesn't seem, I don't think they're looking for anyone else, I'm not sure. It doesn't seem like a very well-planned ISIS-style attack like we've seen in other cities across the world in recent years. However, the fact that he's made these weapons means there was a degree of pre-planning there. He hasn't just gone there on the spur of the moment, because he's got these things in his hands. You can see the rags there, so he's clearly prepared for it, and he's thrown them. So yeah, all the hallmarks of a terrorist attack, and yet again relating to Gaza, the cause that seems to affect people more viscerally than any other.
Yeah, OK. Thank you so much, Paul Birch there, counter-terrorist specialist. What do we know about the accused 45-year-old man identified as Mohammed Sabri Solomon, alleged to have thrown the device into a group of people who'd assembled in a pedestrianised zone for a peaceful protest for the Israeli hostages still held in Gaza?
It's just vile, isn't it?
It's just horrific to think that those are young people, probably, in Colorado,
exercising their
far
democratic
from
right,
the Middle East, my point of saying about...
to protest. And then we shouldn't forget there are still many hostages in captivity. The dreaded Hamas have not released them. And the war continues. But, I mean, that could have caused huge... 6 people were injured, I think.
Well, the crowd was basically gathered for an event, I think that our guest just said there, is regularly. It's called Run for Their Lives. It's a walk to show support for the Israeli hostages being held by Hamas in Gaza. That's according to a statement by the Boulder Jewish Community Centre, and they meet every Sunday to call for the hostages' release. So, in a way, a soft target if you are as deranged as this man.
Who could possibly object to people campaigning to have hostages released who've been in hostages now for 18 months?
Yeah.
Horrible.
Just incredible.
Now, up next, something that Bev and I agree on. You know, we often don't agree on things, but the disposable vape ban comes into force today to deter young people from using them. Will outlawing them make any difference at all?
I suggest no. But we'll be discussing that in just a minute. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
I think there's a real culture shift when you leave the forces, which some people really struggle with. Not all do, many don't. You know, of those 2.1 million, not everybody's struggling with loneliness and isolation. But those that do really struggle to find their way, and then you get in that spiral.
They've been institutionalised, they've been in a with other men or other women for many years.
So you've lived in that community, you've felt valued, you've had purpose, you've had a great team and an identity, and then in some cases you don't. And when you lose that, some people struggle with that. And so Friday, as you saw, is an environment where you can bring that community back together again.
And it might actually be that some of the people to whom the army is an appealing option are already the kind of characters that want that security and they need that routine and stability, especially as younger men maybe. And so to have that taken away must be difficult. What more can be done, Richard, to help veterans when they do transition out of the army?
I think there's some good mechanisms in place for people to transition from all 3 services, Army, Navy, Air Force. But some people struggle, perhaps those who leave quickly as well. So if you leave quickly under a medical discharge or for disciplinary reason, you know, you haven't necessarily left on your terms or within a time. If you were planning on serving 20 plus years and that's over in a flash, that's a game changer. And so you need that support network, family, friends, but also the MOD provide and also local community provides. And
I was talking to one guy and I said, what's going on with your leg? And his wife said, he won't tell you. He lost his leg on duty, would not talk about it. He said, I was just doing my job. That's when it's incredibly humbling, and we saw a lot of this at VE Day. Bev and I were down at the Palace for 5.5 hours, and we met some extraordinary figures. And it does, you do feel a sense of humility in their presence, and then you see some of them are sleeping rough on our streets.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Bev.
Time's running out and your chance to win our biggest ever Great British giveaway. It's that Big old motorhome worth £67,000.
Come on, Andrew, sell it. You're not a salesman, are you? Amazing motorhome.
And it will be amazing. Beverly really wants it, actually.
Yes.
But you're not allowed to enter.
Why?
Because we can't have a presenter win it. Here's the details to make sure she doesn't win it.
I'd love it. Here it is.
There's just 4 days remaining in our biggest giveaway to date. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be spending your summer touring in this stylish Elnag Baron 560 motorhome, worth over £67,000. This brand new 2025 model comes complete with kitchen and bathroom areas and enough space to comfortably sleep a family of 4. We'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to add a few of your favourite things, or just spend it however you like. Hurry, lines close on Friday. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Yes.
Enter. The time is running out. And I tell you what, if you win it, I'll come with you on a little holiday.
No, don't put them off with it.
I was waiting for that. I would see myself tucked up on that little bunk bed there in a sleeping bag. As long as you bring me a cup of tea in the morning,
right.
I will
just
come on
gets better
holiday.
and better, doesn't it? Weekend away with Beverly in the
top bunk or bottom bunk, Andrew?
Stop it. We're
Oh.
not going this conversation.
Carry on campus.
You don't mind.
Right, on that bombshell.
Meant it in those terms, but
that
anyway.
was Matthew Torbett. That's Alex.
How very naughty. Now then, to stop giggling, Andrew Pearce. Right, disposable vapes ban.
Yeah.
Alex,
Yeah.
this is something that Andrew and I feel really strongly about.
Yeah.
I think vapes has just...
They're a
Public
con.
health success was the demise of the cigarette. It has merely been replaced by vapes, which bring with them their own health issues.
100%. Yeah.
For young people.
Well, so this is really interesting, and there's a lot of uproar about it because people thought, right, we'll get people off smoking by putting them on vapes. I think vapes are going to be just as bad in the future. It'll be the same thing. Vapes cause cancer. Of course. I mean, I think anyone, even vapers, will understand that. But what these companies have done to get around this ban is basically just make the head detachable on them. So they're going to still be chucked in the bin en masse. I don't think this solves any problem.
What do you mean? Explain that. So if people don't know how a vape works, what is it?
A non-detachable... I'm just going to use a pen here as an example. The old non-disposable vapes, you wouldn't be able to take the head off where the liquid is to vape it.
Right.
Now, you can just detach the head and replace it with another liquid tab. Right? So you can keep the bottom bit where the battery is and take off the liquid bit where all the vape stuff is. Now, so before, that was all one unit. You couldn't replace it. Now, all they've done is just let you take the top off. But they're the same cost, and that's all you've got to do. You'll just chuck it in the bin afterwards like you normally do. So I don't think this solves any problem.
Do you understand that, Andrew?
Well, it sounds to me like it's a con.
Yes, they've got round it. This is a loophole. So basically, they think that everyone's going to keep the bottom bit and just buy these filler replacement stuff. They're not. They're just going to chuck it in the bin. And they're just as cheap, just as bad for you. So they've just got round it.
What do you think,
That's
Matthew?
all it is.
Are you? Because I think vaping is a way to lure young people into smoking who probably wouldn't have smoked.
Especially, with the smoking ban in full swing, even more so. I've always had my concerns. You hear of these terms like popcorn lung and that people end up in very bad ways with it. I think if you're addicted to something, and this is just my sort of personal view, I've had my addictions. I think the best way is to just go cold turkey. It's dead hard, but you'll just feel a million times better for it. I think vaping is that sort of half step, but what you end up with, or from what people tell me, is you end up addicted to the vapes, and therefore you've got no intention to really sort of kick the habit full stop. And for kids, what it is as well is that they've got all these lovely flavours to them, right?
Like
Smoking a cigarette is, it's a cigarette, right? You taste it. A lot of kids will taste it for the first time and go, that's disgusting, I don't want that.
And your parents will smell it on you.
And your parents will smell it. No smell on you. And they taste like watermelon, strawberries, all this blueberries, all this stuff, and it's like a sweetie. Right?
And kids are literally doing this in classrooms.
I see kids do it all the time. There's got to be a more...
I'm not exaggerating.
You've got to come down on the newsagents more, because how are they getting hold hold of them in the first place. I'm not having it's the same as when we was at school and you'd be asking someone if they could go in and get you 26 or 10
The trouble is, these newsagents, the revenue flow is being diminished the whole time. It's an easy way for them to make some money, and I sort of get it.
There's also a nasty side to this as well. So obviously there are newsagents that will crack down on it and won't sell it to kids, but there's also this now black market of vapes that are being spiked and sold to kids outside school grounds. So there's a kid in hospital the other day, really bad. So, you know, this is a real big problem. I don't think this is going to solve it in the slightest. I think the tobacco companies are very smart. They always find a way to get around it. I think you should just ban them under a certain price. You need to put a price cap on them.
And the problem is, parents of my sort of age with teenagers go, oh, and you know what, he's vaping, but at least he's not smoking, right? And so it feels like the lesser of two evils. But I've told my daughters I will be zero tolerance. If I see a vape in your bedroom, you are literally being kicked out. To which they go, Mum, would you really kick us out? And I go, well, no, I wouldn't really, but I've got to think of another punishment. I've slightly made a rod for my own back there. But I would come down on them so hard because inevitably they end up then cigarettes and then they end up on cannabis. I'm sorry, this is the gateway drug for teenagers.
Which of course, last week, while you waved, our brilliant Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, said he would decriminalise small portions. What's a small portion?
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
Crackers.
So, apparently, page 3 is still a thing in newspapers. Did you know that? I bet you turn to that
it's probably not the first page I'd ever look at, really, in all my years in newspapers.
Exactly.
So Matthew, what has happened to page 3?
They're scrapping it all together. So I didn't realise. The Sun obviously faced a lot of backlash over the years. I think, was it around... It was just sort of feminist groups, wasn't it? And they
Should we just clarify? Because there might be students watching this who don't know what we're talking about. We're quite...
don't make me feel old, all of a sudden.
Yeah. So it used to be quite normal to open the Sun newspaper and see a pair of boobs.
On page 3.
On page 3. Totally. Carry on, Matt.
The Sun scrapped it a fair few years ago now, but apparently the Daily Star had carried it on.
Right.
But they would not have the boobs out. They'd just have a glamorous woman in very little on page 3.
Right.
But even now the Daily Star are going the same way. And maybe that's a change in reading habits and those that read newspapers or that don't read newspapers.
But those page 3 women in the 70s and 80s were huge stars.
Yes, they were, yeah.
Samantha Fox. I mean, they're household names.
Nina Carter. I was at Buckingham House Garden Party a couple of weeks ago for the Not Forgotten, a very important veterans charity. There was Linda Lusardi, one of the most
that was the one I was...
And there was a crowd of people around her wanting to talk to her because they recognised because she still looks fantastic. Still got a very good pair of boobs, it has to be
said. Is that right, Andrew?
I didn't get away with saying that.
If you'd asked me what things did you notice at the Royal Garden Party, that would not have been on the top 10.
As a professional, I thought, that's Linda Lusardi. And I thought...
I know those.
Oh, yeah, they're pretty good. They're in pretty good shape.
Isn't this just a sign of the times of the dying newspaper trend? And unfortunately, this is what it is.
We're not dying, Matthew.
Well, newspaper. We're not a newspaper yet.
They're
we
in
might
decline.
do our own GB News newspaper one day. But it is obviously maybe something that was more attractive to younger audiences at the time. But now they're all online on social media.
And also, if you want to see a pair of boobs... Let's face it, you've got every size, shape and whatever on your phone. No one needs to buy newspapers to look at them.
Which you shouldn't be able to access it that easily because that means your 15-year-olds and your 13-year-olds and it's not just boobs they're looking at.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that cat is out of the bag.
That's well out of the bag.
Yeah, that is, right. What about the Brexit reset? Matthew, what's this about?
Well, Keir Starmer's coming under a bit of pressure, really, and it's Chris Philp that's come out and said it, that
he's Shadow
Home Secretary, in the fact that we should go back and reset with regards to EU fishing rights in our waters and elsewhere until France gets a grip on those crossing the Channel. My views have been long held for a while in that you should be having processing centres offshore at Calais and elsewhere. But the other thing is, if this was Nigel Farage, I'd sort of take the criticism. If it was the Lib Dems or the Greens, the Tories have got zero credibility on this issue. And for Chris Philp to be talking about it, I've got very little time to listen to him. You had 14 years.
Yeah, but I was tweeting at the weekend when we saw 1,200 illegal migrants crossing the Channel. Hang on, Starmer, why did you do the surrender deal without trying to get some form of deal to make sure we have a returns policy for these migrants?
It was our biggest weapon, wasn't it? The fisheries. We had that over the EU. And we squandered it. A week before, by the way, the EU's hand was massively weakened by Trump saying we're going to slap 50% tariff on you. We would have got an even better deal had they had been desperate with us. But, you know, he sold out the country for 12 years. I mean, Chris Phillips, right? I do understand where you're coming from, Matthew, but at some point in time, we have to let the Tories say, look, they're in opposition now. It's a different group of people. As much as I don't forgive them for what they did, they've also got to move on at some point. And go, actually, we do need to have some.
And we need to move on.
But Farage will pick up that point.
Of course,
Alex and Matthew, thank you so much.
We might be getting a bit off Nigel Farage at some point in the programme, actually, because he's campaigning in Scotland.
Right, here's Sam Francis with your news.
Very good morning to you at 11:32 exactly. The top story, Sir Keir Starmer has announced the UK is preparing for war. Not to fight it, though, but to prevent it. The Prime Minister's unveiled a sweeping defence overhaul, pledging war-fighting readiness in the face of threats from Russia. The plans include up to 12 new attack submarines, 6 munitions factories, a drone-integrated Royal Navy and £15 billion for the UK's nuclear warhead programme. He says the UK will deliver the biggest contribution to NATO since it was created. But critics say without firm funding, even the most ambitious plans risk sinking before they launch. Well, let's take a listen to what Sir Keir Starmer had to say as he spoke earlier in Glasgow.
The threat we now face is more serious, more immediate and more unpredictable than at any time since the Cold War. We face war in Europe, new nuclear risks, daily cyber attacks. A new era in the threats that we face demands a new era for defence and security. Not just to survive in this new world, but to lead. We will never gamble with our national security. Instead, we will act in the national interest.
Ukraine and Russia are back at the table in Istanbul today for a second round of direct peace talks, but expectations there are low. President Volodymyr Zelensky claims Moscow is doing everything it can to ensure the next possible meeting is fruitless and says Russia failed to submit proposals ahead of time. It follows Operation Spider's Web, a Ukrainian drone assault hitting Russian air bases with more than 117 drones, said to have struck over a third of Moscow's strategic bombers. The bold move came just hours after Russia launched its largest aerial attack on Ukraine since the war began. Last month's talks, also in Istanbul, led only to a prisoner swap. Both sides now return with little trust and rising tensions. In the United States, 8 people have been injured in a suspected terror attack at a pro-Israeli rally in Colorado. Police say a man shouting "Free Palestine" threw Molotov cocktails at the crowd, using a makeshift flamethrower during a weekly event supporting Israeli hostages. The FBI has named the suspect an Egyptian national who overstayed a US visa. Officials are treating it as a hate crime, with Israel's foreign minister calling it pure anti-Semitism. And supermarkets could soon be forced to tell shoppers when they're paying more for less under a new Lib Dem proposal to tackle so-called shrinkflation. The party wants retailers to legally display notices for 60 days when a product's size is reduced, but its unit price increases. MPs may vote on the amendment on Wednesday. Lib Dem trade spokesperson Clive Jones says shoppers are being ripped off during a cost of living crisis and deserve transparency. Those are the latest headlines for now. I'll be back with you at midday. Now, though, it's back over to Andrew and Bev.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Up at noon, Emily and Tom are here with Good Afternoon Britain. Hello, both.
Hello. We are indeed. I mean, all this talk about us being on a war footing and how we're going to up defence spending, going to have all these nuclear submarines, etc., etc.
War-fighting readiness.
More missiles. Is anyone else just thinking we can't even control our borders?
We made that point.
We can't even.
I think
the country was shocked on Saturday to see that figure. 1,194 people, mostly young men.
And the French cops
We
laughing.
don't know where they're from.
French cops laughing.
French cops laughing. Does anyone have any, any idea of how this actually looks on the international stage?
It's
the fact that we can't even control our borders at the same time as we're talking about being on a war footing.
It's the fact that Keir Starmer can't put two and two together. Like, the juxtaposition of those two issues is so noisy in the minds of the British public.
Yeah.
And yet there he is trying to make us feel frightened of war, and therefore what? We will then lean into and support our Prime Minister?
The whole point of defence is to protect your borders.
And yet it's not that our Navy is incapable or that our Coast Guard is absolutely impotent. It's that we have laws and structures and rules that means you can't interfere with boats at sea. And as long as we follow those rules, as long as we do not intercept those boats due to the Convention of the Law on the Seas, as long as we continue to have exactly the same incentive structure under the 51 Convention on Refugees.
The conventions are so old and out of date.
Stop it.
I know, those conventions are old, ancient history and out of date, and they've got to be reformed. Mark White was saying that the Home Secretary's been on to her French counterpart saying this has to stop. So what's that going to do?
Well, what exactly is that? How many times have we had these conversations with the French? I mean, they must be just laughing and taking the money.
There is a law change, which means that the French police can try and prevent the boats...
In shallow water. Once you get into deep water, the Convention on the sea kicks in.
What's the definition?
It's up to your knee.
Ultimately, why would the French want to stop people?
Well, exactly.
They want them out.
They just want to clear.
And they want to come here.
This could have been stopped years ago if the French would just allow Britain to return people, because we pick them up at sea. We put them onto our vessels, because their vessels are unseaworthy and unsafe.
Service for
if we could just drop them back on a French beach rather than our beach, all that would take is a stroke of Emmanuel Macron's pen.
Well, we're going to be looking at what actually a national emergency, if one was called in this area, would actually look like, what it would actually enable the government to do.
Fascinating.
Right, Emily and Tom will be here from midday, but up next on Britain's Newsroom, find out whether the BBC have been accused of ignoring biology with their latest drama. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your latest GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. Whilst today's looking largely fine for many of us, just a few showers here and there is some wet and windy weather that's going to push in from the northwest later on. That's in association with a front that's currently just to the west of us, but it is coming towards the UK. Ahead of it though, like I said, a pretty fine day for most. Not all, there are a fair few showers across parts of East Anglia, some parts of eastern England as well, and also a scattering further north over parts of Scotland, but otherwise many areas, particularly across England and Wales, having a decent day. Lots of sunshine, and in that sunshine feeling pleasantly warm. Temperatures peaking in the low 20s for some, mid to high teens further north. Then, as we go through the end of the afternoon and into the evening, the winds will be starting to pick up, but it's staying fine across southern parts for now. A good deal of sunshine to end the day. Starting to turn cloudier though across Northern Ireland, and some rain pushing into the west as we head towards the evening, and a similar story across Scotland, those winds strengthening as well. We could be looking at gusts of around 40 to 50 miles per hour, maybe even a little bit stronger than that in some exposed coasts towards the west. Then overnight, this band of rain towards the northwest continues its progress southeastward, so turning pretty wet across parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. Some high rainfall totals could cause a little bit of flooding, and we do need to watch out for those strong blustery winds. And then that rain pushes into northwestern parts of England and Wales through the early hours as well. Elsewhere and away from the band of rain, there will be some clear skies, but temperatures not dropping a huge amount, most places staying in double figures. That wet and blustery weather continues its way southeastwards as we go through tomorrow, so a bit of a damp picture across central, southern and eastern parts of England tomorrow. Behind it towards the north and west, plenty of showers, a few sunny spells, yes, but plenty of hefty showers and some blustery winds in the mix as well. Bye-bye.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 11:41, Britain's News on GB News with Andrew Pearce. Bev Turner is back from her holiday. She was in the Isle of Wight.
And it's lovely to be back.
And
now,
the weather wasn't great.
weather wasn't great half-term week, but, you know, we made the most of it with the kids. British holiday, you can't beat
I think
it.
British holidays are great.
It was wonderful. Fish and chips, sandy beaches. It was just brilliant.
Do they still put the fish and chips in newspapers?
No.
Oh.
No one reads newspapers anymore, Andrew.
They
Pearce.
do
Do you not
read
know that?
Lots of people read newspapers, especially mine, the Daily Mail. It's the biggest selling newspaper, a lot.
It was brilliant. I had a great time. Now, the BBC is coming under fire for ignoring biology.
This is their new drama, What It Feels...
Welcome to the year 2000. Everyone is having fun, except me.
So that's this new drama, What It Feels Like for a Girl. It's facing criticism from women's rights campaigners.
So this is the life story of a person called Paris Lees, and she transitioned from a boy to a woman. Now, critics are accusing the BBC of ignoring biology and the Supreme Court's recent ruling with the choice of its title being...
It is, we have to point out, it is a drama.
It is a drama. Well, it's a biopic, isn't it? So let's talk now to Legal Communications Officer for the Alliance Defending Freedom, Lois McClatchy-Miller. Lois, always lovely to see you. Now, tell me what you make of this drama and whether the BBC is going to hit the right note with the British public at the moment and how they might feel about the transgender issue.
Well, there's no two ways about it. This programme targets vulnerable young people with an ideology that's proven to be harmful. Now, there can be no claims to ignorance anymore. We've had the Cass review come out with lots of revelations about how this ideology promoting transgenderism among children, promoting puberty blockers, can have a harmful physical impact on, you know, bone density, heart problems, also mental health problems, as children feel they must change their bodies in order to feel better about themselves. We've also, of course, had that very famous Supreme Court ruling affirming that men are not women and women are not men. And so we have this evidence. The culture has shifted greatly, and yet still the BBC are pushing this kind of propaganda on an issue that causes serious harm. We know how powerful storytelling can be in our culture. It's much more powerful sometimes amongst young people than the hard data that we have against this kind of ideology.
Just to play devil's advocate for a minute, though, if you are watching this drama as a heterosexual boy with no ambiguity about your gender or your sexuality, this drama won't change that. Well, it's not going to make you wake up the next morning and say, oh, maybe I should transition to being a girl.
Right, but what the group that I actually worry about more is the girls. I remember when I was a teenage girl, I was heavily influenced by the kinds of programmes that I was watching, for good or for ill. I remember watching fantastic shows on the BBC that warned about things like grooming and being very kind of switched on to the realities of that. But I also remember watching a lot of things about anorexia. And I remember all of the girls in my school and my kind of generation fell into this kind of social phenomenon that we all kind of thought we might have anorexia, and we kind of encouraged each other to think about this. Girls are very susceptible to social contagion. We know teenage girls put a high value on social credit and saying the right thing and seeming to do the right thing and do the popular thing. And so I worry that these narratives, which are not based on the scientific facts that we have, that don't give out the correct warnings about the dangers of this ideology, will seep through, especially through teenage girls, into schools and put them in a very vulnerable situation.
And I suppose it's also about normalising the transitional process, isn't it? As you say, maybe we haven't seen the drama yet. We may be doing it a disservice. It might be that Paris Lees has quite clearly depicted in their journey the challenges of making that choice. But my suspicion is it possibly glamorises the experience.
That's right. And, you know, when it comes to protecting women's safe spaces, whether that be rape crisis shelters or bathrooms or prison units or whatever the space needs to be, that it should be biologically contained. A lot of the time we're talking about 55-year-old men who've decided to put on a dress and lipstick and, you know, identify as a young woman in a very, very strange way. And I think by glamorizing this with one particular young person, instead of showing the vast breadth of the issue, of the vast breadth of people engaging in this kind of issue who might want access into women's spaces that teenage girls would very likely not feel comfortable with.
Yeah, very good point.
It's missing a really key part of the argument.
Thank you, Lois. Lois McClatchy-Miller there from the Alliance Defending Freedom.
She's great, isn't she?
It's fab.
I really like it. Now, we have to always, in the interest of balance, because, you know, we do balance on this programme across the channel, actually. A BBC statement says, the BBC has a rich history of bringing a wide range of culturally significant works and voices to the screen, and adapting Paris Lee's acclaimed memoir is in line with this.
Up next, we will fill you in on what Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has been doing in Scotland this morning.
But first, if you're in search of some holiday sun, I doubt you find it in Scotland. With all respect to our Scottish brethren, here is the forecast of some of our top European destinations.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
And looking further afield, there's plenty of warm sunshine, not as hot as recent days, with the risk of thunderstorms, but it is going to be breezy across the Canary Islands and parts of Madeira. Plenty of sunshine across Portugal and southern parts of Spain, but there are going to be frequent showers and thunderstorms across the Alps. Plenty of sunshine across parts of Italy and Greece, and we hold on to plenty of warm sunshine as we go through the week. Few showers around, but highs up to the high 20s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Nigel is back.
Good evening.
Unfiltered.
Are these proposals bold enough?
Uncompromising.
Will it bring growth?
Unmissable.
We as a country are brilliant.
Nigel Farage returns tomorrow from 7 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, Reform UK are trying to increase their support in Scotland. Nigel Farage is there this morning. He says he recognises the pain net zero is causing the country. Yeah, all parts of the United Kingdom, actually, not just Scotland.
We can con ourselves as much as we like. There'll be more coal burnt this year than has ever been burnt in the history of mankind. And the same applies to the use of gas and oil. Even the most ardent proponent of net zero has to accept the world will still be using oil and gas up until 2050 and beyond. And yet we've decided to sacrifice this industry as a consensus around net zero has emerged. Of course, I say net zero, it isn't really net zero. All we're doing is exporting carbon dioxide production. And into the bargain, we are seeing Scotland and many parts of England and Wales literally deindustrialising before our very eyes.
For Nigel Farage, and of course he's pointing to the oil fields of Aberdeen, which this government, in its madness, wisdom, is no new oil exploration. There's thousands of jobs potentially going to go in the mad dash for net zero. And for Reform traditionally have not done well in Scotland, but as you heard earlier in the programme, there is a by-election taking place in a place called Hamilton, Larkhall and Stonehouse to elect a new member of the Scottish Parliament.
So we have to tell you who the candidates are. They are Katie Loudon, SNP.
David Russell, Labour.
Richard Nelson, Conservative.
Anne McGuinness, Greens.
Aisha Mir, Liberal Democrats.
Ross Lambie, Reform.
Colette Bradley, Scottish Socialist Party.
Andy Brady, Scottish Family Party.
Janice McKay, UK Independence Party.
And Mark Wilson, who is independent.
Wilkinson. So good luck to everybody.
Yeah, exactly. And of course we will cover that result when it comes on Friday.
That's right. Shall we have a look? Well, we won't be here on Friday.
No, but GB News, I mean.
Yep, GB News will be here on Friday, of course, and it is interesting. Every by-election now has a new renewed interest, doesn't it? Right, it's been nice to be back. It's been a lovely Monday. I hope you have a good day the rest of the day. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 9:30.
Yeah.
All being well.
Tom and Emily are next.
Britain on a war footing. But just how much more money will the army be getting? When will we reach that 3% ambition that the Prime Minister is talking about? Because he hasn't given us a time frame.
Yeah, he won't tell us, will he? He's being awfully vague about that one. But also, talking about how we're on a war footing, we can't even control our borders. 1,200 people in just one day crossing over the channel. Should we not get our border security done first?
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, it's settled for most, but low pressure is going to be arriving and it's going to be turning increasingly wet and windy. So through this morning, it's plenty of sunshine for many of us. There are a few showers around across Wales, but actually the main focus for showers today will be across East Anglia, parts of Lincolnshire and Yorkshire. Elsewhere, plenty of sunny spells, but the sunshine will be turning increasingly hazy later across Northern Ireland and Scotland, with the winds strengthening here too. Cooler here, but in the sunshine, further towards the south and east, with lighter winds, feeling pleasant, highs of 21 or 22 degrees. So through Monday evening, then plenty of late evening sunshine towards eastern parts of Scotland, but sunshine increasingly hazy out towards the west with a strong wind ahead of some heavy spells of rain. A similar picture across Northern Ireland with heavy spells of rain soon arriving. Across much of England and Wales, though, largely fine and dry. Plenty of late evening sunshine here. So as we go overnight then, through Monday evening and overnight, heavy spells